Alright everybody, so we have rigged our character together using Adobe Animate's bone tool, and we have created an armature that can be controlled with either control points or by moving each individual bone in the armature. So now we are ready to start animating. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that my armature layer is here, that it's unlocked, that everything is good to go there. And for this demo, I am going to do 2 seconds of animation. Or I'm going to start with 2 seconds of animation. So I'm going to go to frame 48 on my armature layer. And I'm going to right click, insert frame. I'm going to do the same thing on my template layer. I don't actually need my template layer, but we're just going to go ahead and do it anyway. It's a good practice to make sure that your layers that you need to be as long as the rest of your animation. For example, if this was a background, I would need the background to follow along the whole time. We want to make sure that they are the same length. Okay, so now I have 48 frames to work with. We are working at 24 frames per second, so we've got 2 seconds. I'm going to start by, on this layer that I've created, this template layer, I'm going to make a layer above it by going to my new layer button. I'm going to name that layer ground or floor, whichever works for you. And I'm going to use my rectangle tool, make sure that my alpha for my fill is up to 100. It might still be 0 from when we change the control point. And I'm just going to pick a green color and draw myself a rectangle. Then just put it right under there so it looks like there's a little bit of depth where his feet are touching the ground. And I've got 48 frames of background. We're putting in this floor so that as we animate, we know where we want to bring his feet back to. So I'm going to lock that floor layer so I can't accidentally move it or click it. I'm going to go back to my armature layer. So the armature layer is the only layer that you can animate the armature on. Unlike doing layer parenting, all of the pieces of your armature are located on the same layer along with all of the bones. So let's start by just having our guy do a little wave. I'm going to go to frame 24, right click, and go to insert pose. Unlike with other forms of tweening like classic tweening, motion tweening, or shape tweening, with an armature layer you're going to be inserting, clearing, cutting, copying, and pasting what are known as poses. You can think about these as the key poses that we talked about last year. These are going to be the big, important storytelling poses. And all of the other poses, our extremes, our breakdowns, etc., will all be filled in by the tween. So let's go ahead and insert pose. And now that we have inserted this pose, we can move our armature. I'm just going to move it right up there. And now if I move my playhead back and forth between frame 1 and frame 24, my character raises his arm. And from 24 on, it stays up in the air because we are holding this frame for the rest of the time. Now, I don't want him to hold his hand up in the air for a full second. I would like him to put his hand back down. So rather than try to figure out exactly where his arm was before and then hope that when I click this button to watch it looped, that it loops in the right place, which it doesn't. Instead of doing that, I am going to go back to my very first frame, my very first pose on my first frame, where my character is already in the pose that I want. And I'm going to right click, and right down here at the bottom we have three options: cut pose, copy pose, and paste pose. We're going to copy this pose. And we're going to head on over to frame 40, right click, and paste that pose. Now if we watch, arm goes up, arm goes down. Okay, so we're halfway to a wave, and you could stop here. This is technically a wave, but this is an animation. I want a little more movement to it. So let's add some more frames in between our key poses here at 1 and 40. I want my character's arm to stay in the air so that it looks like he's waving. So I'm going to go over here to, I don't know, 35, insert a pose, and just put that arm back up in the air. Okay. Now I want there to be a little bit more happening in here, so I'm going to insert another pose so that he's waving in, then waving out. We're going to have him wave in again, insert another pose, and then the arm will fall back down. So our final 2-second loop animation looks like this. Now, my spacing is fine. I think that the location of the arm is fine. We've got a good arc here, but my timing feels off. I've got a really long gap where his arm is down, and then a very short amount of time where he does his little wave. And maybe that's what I want, but I think we could expand this a little bit. So I'm going to just grab this pose by clicking it once, so just that one frame is selected, frame 24. And I'm going to click again and hold to drag this over. So I'm going to start my wave at frame 18. And then I'm going to move these poses over in the same manner so that they are a little bit more spread out. And the result is a slightly more natural wave. Now, we've only moved this one part of the armature. We've only moved the arm. We didn't move the head or the other arm or the feet or anything else. So he's looking a little stiff. So let's go back to one of our poses and move some other pieces. This should be at 24. All right. There we go. So let's go to frame 24, this one right here. And let's just have his head and neck tilt in a little bit there. Like, maybe he's nodding, saying hello, as well as he can, considering he doesn't have a face or a mouth or anything else. Alright, so there's our 2 seconds of waving. I want another 2 seconds of animation. So I'm going to go to the 4-second mark, frame 96. I'm going to insert a frame. And you'll see that it just inserts 2 seconds more frames to the armature frames that I already have. So my character is already in the same neutral pose that he was at the end there, and I don't need to copy and paste anything over. Alright, for this next bit, I would like to make our character jump into the air from this neutral pose. So I'm going to go to frame, let's say 72, and insert a pose there. And this pose is where I want him to be at the height of his jump in the air. So in order to move my character up, move the whole rig and armature up, I can't just move bones because these are all kind of locked into place. But I can go ahead and pose him as if he's jumping in the air. So I'm just going to move my pieces around as if he is in the air. Okay? Then, to actually move him into the air, I'm going to need to switch tools. So I'm going to switch over to the free transform tool. And now, with this whole thing selected, I'm going to move my character right up into the air. And then going back to my regular selection tool, I can now see how that looks. Now you might be thinking, that is a really slow jump. And you are correct. There is a definite timing problem here, as well as a bit of a posing problem. If we think about the way that jumping works, really, we need an anticipation. We need a crouch before the jump will work. So we're going to need to start with a pose that's on the ground. And thankfully, we already have one of those. We have the one right here at frame 40. So we're going to copy pose. And over here at frame, let's say 55, we will paste pose, and now he is on the ground. From here to here. All right, so between 40 and 55 now we're going to animate this crouch. Right here, let's say in the middle, maybe a little bit over the middle, I'm going to do 48. We're going to insert a pose, and we're kind of going to do the opposite of what we did when we did the jump. We are going to use the free transform tool to move the character down into the ground, or on top of the ground, so that we can reposition the armature into a crouch. And this is why having the ground there is super important, because now we know where his feet are supposed to be when they are on the ground. I'm going to move his arms in too, maybe tilt his head a little bit. And there we go. If I set this so that it loops from 35 to 96, then we've got the end of the wave, and then we've got a jump, and so on. All right. So, you know what they say, what goes up must come down. And we know that our character is going to land and end up in that same neutral pose. So again, we're going to go back to frame 40, copy pose, go to frame 96, 96, paste pose. And let's not forget, when we land, physics is going to make us crouch again. So we're going to go ahead and copy the pose at 48 and paste that back around 85. Whoop, paste pose. Okay, let's watch the whole thing all together. So we've got the wave, the head tilt, there's a crouch, a jump, another crouch, and because my first frame and my last frame are exactly the same, it loops cleanly. And that is going to be it for the basic animation. Armature rigs are relatively limited in what you can do with them. Really, all you can do is rotate these joints and move the rig around. For example, I could, make his legs go out a little bit. But there's no dimension, no third dimension here, so we are just sort of stuck with this sort of simple puppet, which is fine for what we need it for. So that is it for animating using the Armature rig. Have fun!